Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing fantastically well. It's Connor here. We are back with your international break debrief. It is the one that we all don't want when it comes to this period of time off domestic football. It feels like we've just started and already we've been halted in our tracks. Yes, everybody, the first of 3 in the next couple of months. Good God, it is painful. But listen, the Nations League is where we want to be, according to the powers that be. So anyway, we're going to be conducting everything around Leeds United, orchestrating the chat from the season so far, the transfer window, the 49ers. It's going to be a bit of a comprehensive review of what we've seen from Leeds United in the first 4 games. And without any further ado, my co-host for this evening, it is Gabe and Oscar.
Ooh.
Has he got his hat on? His hat on in the right way, kind of a little bit jaunty, but how are we doing, mate? All good?
That is better. How are we, mate? How are we? I'm all good. International break, the fun, joyful international break. But it just always comes at the worst time for Leeds. That's all I can say. But all good, mate. All good.
Oh, good. Gabe has had some big news leaked by Fabrizio Romano earlier on, which has made his international break a little bit more exciting. Gabe?
Oh, yeah. The USA are the job that Pochettino wants now, apparently. So, yeah. Awesome.
Good news. I mean, you were buzzing about it earlier on.
So, I wasn't buzzing about it. I just posted that I thought I must live in the Twilight Zone now because it's just
but we've had chats about it. We've had chats about it, and you're excited. But
is it not weird to you?
It's weird. I mean, we've got Lee Carsley, mate, and you've got Pochettino. I mean, that should be a bit of a thing in itself, surely.
Yeah, it just I don't know. It feels a bit weird.
Yeah, you need to. Who was the previous guy? What was he called?
You know what he's called, Greg Berhalter.
I feel like you had a bit of a relationship with him, though. You kind of enjoyed cussing him out. It was something else with him. With Pochettino, it's going to be a little bit different. Who knows?
No, see, I'm a little bit unique when it comes to Leeds fans. I don't enjoy the misery. So I didn't have a relationship with Greg. I despise the guy as a manager. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Maybe, probably not. I don't know. I'm skeptical about anybody in professional sports being that nice of a guy. But here we are. Anyway, yeah, it's great. U.S. men's team have a manager who's not a mediocre MLS guy who lost his job in the second division of Sweden for a lack of attacking play. So awesome. What an upgrade.
There we go. Michael says Pochettino, Western McDonald's, Weight Watchers USA. Michael, I don't understand that comment. But shout out. Great balance again. Shout out to John and the gang out in Robinets Bay as well. Right, well, we've got some football to talk about, haven't we? We've finished the transfer window, a comprehensive 49ers review on the window, but also Leeds we've had 4 games to get involved in. Oscar, I've seen you've been tweeting profusely, which is normally a good indication that you've got a lot to talk about, mate. So what are some of the pros and cons about Leeds United's start so far?
Well, I mean, obviously cons are we lost 3 of our best players. I mean, obviously that's the first and foremost thing. But the pros are we've responded really well, I think. Yeah, obviously it was a very dodgy start for us. Maybe not so much in terms of performances, but just points-wise, a very, very dodgy first 3 games for us. And we've responded brilliantly. You know, it's 3 clean sheets on the bounce. I think it's 2 professional performances to round off this first bit of the season. And, you know, we're already up to 4th. Is it 4th or 5th? I think we are in the table. You know,
4th.
After a dodgy start, you know, it's not bad, you know, to find ourselves 4th. Obviously, we want to finish the season much higher. But, you know, even with such a bad start to the season, a lot of upheaval once again, you know, like last season, we still find ourselves 4th. And we've made a much stronger start than last season. You know, whether we like it or not, that is definitely the case. And yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing at this moment in time. It's a different Leeds last season, but I think it's one that's more tactical, I think, than last season's Leeds team. I think we're less reliant on individual brilliance. And I think you saw it with the manner of the goals that we scored, you know, in the last 2 games. And yeah, it's not, you know,
Oscar, take me through something I'm not aware of. Why are we more? Because I think you've seen something a little bit different, but is it just the fact that I'm seeing a lot of us being in possession and building up in a 3-1-6 formation? Is that what you're referring to here?
Yeah, and I think, you know, obviously we've got players to come in as well, you know, from the off, you know, in terms of to improve us further. You know, I think obviously, you know, Tanaka comes on, you know, and he just looks a class above. the minute he stepped on the pitch. You know, he only had, 6-7 minutes on the pitch. And to me, he just looked absolutely top class. Ramazani, really impressive as well. And you think you've got profiles like that to add into the team. Obviously, Dan James out injured, different bits and pieces, and the likes of Matteo Joseph are only going to get better. But in terms of what is sort of like a 3-1-6, I think what we're seeing with this Leeds team is there's a lot of fluidity with the fullbacks. Obviously, when the ball's on the left-hand side, Jayden Bogle will tuck in from the right, and it'll make a back three, to kind of accommodate Junior Firpo to push on, and vice versa. It's very fluid in that kind of sense. We've always got
Oscar. We've seen that a lot now, though. 3-1-6. I don't think that's and obviously it's a variation of what we've previously seen. But a 3-1-6, I feel, in football nowadays is it's pretty frequent when it comes to build up. I mean, people talk about Man City in the 3-1-6, and they almost think it's novel. But I mean, you see Man United building up in a 3-1-6. You see Villa building up in a 3-1-6. I feel like it's the modern thing right now, isn't it? In build up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think certainly for a possession-based team, I think you obviously see, there's a few teams that still build up in a back four and keep the fullbacks really wide and like traditional fullbacks. And we definitely do that in an attacking sense. I think often you do sometimes see Bogle and Firpo quite high up the pitch, and then other times you see them in the back three. So I think there's a lot of fluidity there, in terms of we are. I think last season when we had sort of Archie Gray right back, you wouldn't really see Archie Gray overlap. He'd naturally tuck into midfield or tuck in to make a back three. So, in terms of who we have bought, I think we've bought well. I have to say that. I think we've got good options in good positions and players that look suited to the roles the rest to play it. In terms of obviously 3-1-6, I think it kind of looks more like a 3-2-5 at this moment in time because Elia Gruev likes to drop deep and Ampadu likes to drop deep. So the midfielders do tend to drop deeper. But with a Tanaka or a Rothwell as an option, they'll push on ahead of Ampadu. So there's still areas we can improve. There's no question about that. We did have a dodgy 15 minutes before half time against Hull, where Hull had some good opportunities. Liam Miller was starting to get some joy on that left-hand side. And we were starting to struggle a little bit of Hull's physicality in those forward areas from time to time. Even Joe Rodon, I might be able to include in that as well from time to time. So, there's still areas to improve. And, fundamentally, you're looking at other teams. Sunderland have made a fantastic start to the season. So, we've still got, ground to make up, in terms of, from where we are. So, I'm not under any illusions. There's still areas to improve on. But fundamentally, I think we look better as a team. I like the way we play. We're looking to play this season a lot more than last season. Not that we were this boring team to watch last season. I just think this season, what we're trying to do is a lot more sustainable. In terms of, you've got both fullbacks looking to overlap. You've got width on both sides at all times. We've got a natural number 9 in there in Matteo Joseph, who I think now he's got that goal. Probably the irony is, I think it was Matteo Joseph's quietest game, of the season by quite a distance, and he gets himself a goal. But it's crucial for his confidence, in terms of, I think he goes on a run now. I really do. And even if he doesn't go on a run, a goal-scoring run, having that natural focal point, that pace in behind, ability to drop in, a little bit of everything you get off Matteo Joseph. Brendan Aronson, maybe he isn't the most technical player, but to be fair to him, he's made our press a lot better. You cannot take that away from Brendan Aronson, and he's definitely worth his place in the team for that alone, really. And the fact he's added some goals as well. So it's very encouraging at this moment in time, but I'm not under any illusions. We've had these spells last season where we looked like we're going to go on a crazy runs and it didn't materialize. So yeah, it's just all about that momentum. I think what we will need to do this season and what I think we have got to do this season is rotate more. And we've got the options to do that. But that obviously comes down to when we are playing Saturday, Tuesday, which is going to come up, around October, November time, that we are rotating. We are rotating Solomon out for Ramazani and James for Nanto, Pirro maybe for Aronson or Joseph. These kind of changes, or maybe even in midfield. So, yeah, it's definitely positive for me so far. I'm not getting too carried away, but 2 professional performances from where we were, guys. Middlesbrough at home. If you'd have told me we'd be 4th after that Borough at home game in the Cup and Jorginho Rutter leaving the club within an hour after that game, if you had told me we'd have been 4th and responded the way we have, I wouldn't have believed you. I thought at that point we're looking at a really, really dodgy first couple of months of the season. So we've navigated the choppy waters early on quite well, but there will be more choppy waters to come.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, it's the games that we've got coming up as well. I think October, Gabe. You look at end of September, start of October. Leeds United are coming up against Burnley. We're coming up against Norwich away. Sheffield United at home. Bristol City away. It's a tough period for Leeds. Then December, it gets a little bit calmer. There are tougher games to come. I think it's interesting with what Oscar says there in terms of us building up in a 3-2-5. And I mean, at points, I think Oscar's right. It seems.
I think it will become a 3-1 once Tanaka. I think Tanaka is going to put Gruev under a lot of pressure, and hopefully that makes Gruev respond. But I think once Tanaka comes in, I noticed it certainly when he came on. He pushed a lot higher up the pitch than
I think as well, Oscar. The point that I was making is the balance is definitely much better. But I think what you're going to get, and I think what Liam Miller showed at the weekend is, and this is just to be balanced here, and for us to not put not to jump ahead instead of walk ahead. We are going to come up against transitional teams who are probably going to pack a punch. And when we are moving forward in the 3-1-6, where you've essentially got 7 players moving forward, whilst it's good and it's good on the eye, I wonder how that's going to stay the test of time against some teams in this division. And that's where you've got to see Daniel Farke maybe utilize a different formation. Obviously, we know I'm talking about build-up there, but that's going to be a primary function of Leeds United in build-up, of which we are going to have the majority of the ball. So you're going to see Leeds building up a hell of a lot. So it's going to be interesting, Gabe, against some of the better teams in this division. I think Hull looked okay. I thought Hull looked okay, but I think that we've got sterner tests to come, haven't we, Gabe?
Yeah, the most important thing in football is to get a result to win, right? So I want to color all of my next comments by I'm happy with the win. And but 2 wins in a row on the bounce, great. I mean that with no sarcasm. I think that you have to look about how we win, and then you have to compare it to how we play when we don't win. I think Oscar's really right to say what he did in terms about what looks different. I'm going to talk about what looks the same, and there are some things that I want us to keep an eye on because I don't necessarily think that. I mean, we had a really good season last year, and I think that you could argue if the league wasn't as difficult with 3 teams eclipsing 90 points, then we probably would have gone up automatically. I think everyone said that. We all agree. However, you do have to look at what trends have continued from last season, and with the asterisk of this is a limited data sample, right? We played 4 games in the league this season, 4, and the first one was an aberration. It was a weird game, opening game of the season, and I don't expect us to play that way. So I'm sort of throwing out the first game. And I'm throwing out the cup match, but because we won't have to be there anymore. But when you look at last season, our expected goals average throughout the season was 1.7, right? The high quality chances or big chances as most places, including SofaScore, which sponsors this channel, by the way, all your data at SofaScore. Make sure you go to SofaScore. We tend to average around 2 or 3 big chances a game. Sometimes we'll have more, but most of the time that tends to be around where we're at. When I look at the last 3 matches we've played, we've generated an XG of 1.46 and 1.19. Both of those managed to be 2-0 victories, which is good, right? You want to see it overperform XG. But what it tells us is this team possesses the ball a lot, but we don't necessarily, and we didn't with Jorginho Ruta or with Crescencio Somerville, and we're not doing it with players that create a more balanced team, as Oscar was quite right to say, and Connor, you've alluded to it, but have less individual top-end talent, I think. The fact that trend is continuing makes you think, all right, we're not going to generate a lot of big chances on goal. So when we play these teams that we should beat, you would like to see us get a result. But you'd also think, I mean, tell me if this sounds familiar. Leeds United start out like a house on fire, are in and around the opponent's penalty area, but aren't really generating big chances that should be clear cuts on goal. Maybe there's one chance or so that doesn't quite fall for us. We go in at halftime 0-0. We come out after halftime. Maybe we grab a goal. We sort of plod through. We get changes at the 75th minute, and then maybe towards the end tack on a goal. But for all the statistical dominance in every other category, we're sort of left thinking, the scoreboard doesn't really reflect what we would have liked to see. That's fine against teams that aren't particularly good. And again, limited data sample, but what I want to encourage everybody to watch is look at the way we played against West Brom. So West Brom conceded every single statistical category to us except for one: big chances in shots on target. I guess those are 2, but big chances usually turn into shots on target. They tied us on that, right? And the end score, the final score was a draw. And ultimately, they limited us to an XG of 0.7. This tends to be what concerns me about not having that top end talent that we do. I'm not saying we don't have any top end players. We just don't know what we have yet with some of these guys. We knew what we had at the end of last season. However, we didn't know what we had in the beginning of last season with some of those guys either. So it could turn into the same thing. We could have players to be equally as brilliant. I don't know. But I'm a little bit worried that our margins of victory against teams that we so thoroughly statistically dominate up and down the pitch in every aspect of the game, save one, big chances and shots on target, it leaves us susceptible to when you do have a team that's a little bit more compact, like West Brom, a little bit more disciplined, like West Brom, even though they don't have the kind of individual talent that we have even this season. It worries me that we're probably going to end up with an XG at the end of the season based on how we're playing now, slightly lower than last season. And again, this is early, could be extrapolating nothing. So one thing that there's a lot of stuff that Oscar's pointed out that's different, and I love that stuff. The stuff that's the same is we're not generating a lot of shots on target, despite our huge possession numbers, no matter how we line up. It's like we're taking different roads to get to the same destination, and it may be good enough to get us promoted, and I hope it is, and it probably will be. But something we should keep an eye on with Daniel Farke, with these new players, doesn't seem to matter who they are. There does seem to be an inability to create high quality, big chances that generate a high volume of shots on target. And against better teams or teams that are a little bit more compact, a little bit more disciplined, maybe a little bit more talented, that might be a problem. Just something to keep an eye on.
It's definitely a fair point. No, 100%. I think it's something that certainly, I probably should have mentioned myself. I think I think we controlled the last two games really well. But yeah, if you go back to saying like, could it have been more than two in either game? Yeah, that'd be a difficult one.
Oscar, if they were any good, those teams, or a little bit more disciplined, really, and the blueprint's there to beat Leeds. Corberán saw. I mean, he didn't beat us, but like at the end of the day, all you have to do is limit our quality of chances and kind of keep us into wide areas. Don't let us around the penalty area. Easier said than done. And then go out on a break. All they need is one or two chances, especially with our goalkeeper. If you hit it on frame, something's going to go in eventually, right? So they don't even really need to do that much. We've seen teams play low block against us. These teams that are going to be good at breaking, it's suicide, I think, to play open against Leeds United. But if you can play if you have players that are committed to both sides of the ball, right, that recover well and defend the box in packs and really keep that area compact, if they spring out and they get a couple of hacks on goal, we could be in trouble because honestly, like we don't, for over the last 3 games, really, really solid performance, right? You would think that our expected goals would be over 1.5 in at least one of those games, but it isn't. It's basically saying that, hey, we did really well to get out of there 2-0. It usually, I mean, if you really look at it, could have been 1-0. And a win is a win. I'm not trying to be negative.
No,
a win
is
a win. But you don't want to, especially with young players and players that you don't know, you want to give them. You always want to underperform your XG. I mean, that's not great. You don't want to. Technically, you don't want to, but like it's more encouraging because you're like, hey, we have chances. We're gonna score. Just if you're overperforming it consistently, that's not particularly great because it means that a lot of times players are just doing really well in positions where maybe they're not expected to score. And that hasn't really happened. And again, it's limited data sample. I'm not trying to be overly alarmist, but if we're just contrasting what looks different, you're right. Some of the ways we line up, the personnel looks different. Ultimately, though, the fundamental DNA of how we play does remain the same. High possession, trying to keep compact to the back, being disciplined, and ultimately trying to just score 1 or 2 goals on maybe 3 big chances all match. It is a little bit risky when you play bigger and better teams. How many of those are in this division? That's the real question. I think that's why we should still expect a top or second place finish at the end of the season when all said and done. But still something to keep an eye on.
I don't necessarily think it's us, deciding we're trying to, play a bit more. What's the word for it? Have more cagey kind of matches where it's a case of we're happy to say we're going to concede as few chances as possible and just try and catch teams out in transition. I don't necessarily think it's so much that. I think you obviously got to give credit to the teams we played. I think West Brom, Sheffield Wednesday, and Hull, to an extent, are teams that haven't conceded many goals this season in general. I think certainly West Brom is
Oscar, it's 4 games in, and it was last season too. I mean, we had a couple every match that we had in next year of over 2 goals. Last season we won almost every single one, but most of them. And again, our average was, and there were huge periods of Now, what am I telling you? I'm not telling you, and this is more for the people in the chat. I'm not telling you that XG is more important than goals scored or winning. What I'm saying is that it tells you about how we play. And we're not a team. If anybody in the chat thinks that we get an overabundance of chances, we have so many chances we don't know what to do with them, please let me know. That's not how we play. And my concern is that if we carry that kind of playing philosophy, and it is, sometimes it's risk averse, isn't it? I'm not saying it's cagey. You're right to point that out, Oscar. But it does tend to be a little bit focused on dominance of possession. And the blueprint seems to be. And I think if our manager showed a little bit more tactical flexibility when it's not working, I'd be less concerned. And I'm not super concerned. I mean, this is me nitpicking and trying to form connections to last season. It's relatively the same. But
I think
if you come out and you make it hard for us and you manage to get goal at the beginning of the second half, that's the way to beat Leeds, isn't it? Because we're not going to make early changes. And typically, if we're down in the second half of a game, we're going to throw a bunch of subs on and just charge the box, right? So it seems Corbrand did a good job. And that's, for me, it's like, I'm just trying to keep expectations a little bit tempered here, that we're not fundamentally that different. We do a little bit less. Now it's not just hoof it to a couple players and have them break lines by running through. There's a lot more passing through lines, but fundamentally, I do think we play the same way.
I guess what I would say about that is as well, with regards to West Brom is, and I sort of hear what you're saying there. I didn't think the West Brom performance was that great. I thought we could have gone with a little bit of a different intention. I thought we set up a little bit to come out there with a point, but we did go down there last season.
By the way, though, could I just say West Brom come the end of the season could be a great point, by the way. But West Brom, to me, look a good team.
Yeah.
And I think they'll be top 3 or 4.
I think that's what I'm saying. I think we've gone there and we've fundamentally gone there and improved on what we've done data-wise last season. And when you're going into when you're looking at our first 4 or 5 games, whatever it has been, we are in a better position than what we were last season, and we are closer to the top of the table than what we were at this point last season. So I think they're probably the overall, general points we've got to look at when it comes to the data. Can you? I know what you're saying. You're comparing really to last season, aren't you? But can you really compare to last season when there's so much of the squad that's different? The entire
no. In that respect, you can't, Connor.
Different.
You're right. And this isn't an attempt to say everything's the same as last season. It's just an attempt to say that, look, this squad on paper is an excellent squad. This is a league-winning or second-place squad, I think, when you compare it to the rest of the teams in this league. Additionally, if you're looking for this team to play in a way that's fundamentally different, because it's not going to be the case. There's the methodology of kind of how you get to that stuff, but at the end of the day, like, it's going to be relatively similar. And Farka is a manager that believes in a Novocaine approach. He believes in his system pretty fervently, that if you just do it right and give it time, it's going to work. Now, the question is, and the most important thing in this business is results, right? I think we all agree on that. The question is, when you take a step back and look at that West Brom performance, now, granted, early in the season.
You're really focusing on that one, aren't you?
Well, no, because I think it's the best. It's a team that is going to be in and around where we're going to be at the end of the season, right? I don't think that Hull or Chef Wednesday are the best.
But how many teams will win at the Hawthorns? I mean, I'm not necessarily. I don't think it was a good performance.
I'm not saying we should win. I'm not saying we should win. What I'm saying is,
I reckon less than 3 teams will win at the Hawthorns this season.
Yes or no? Does it sound familiar that a team with less talent and less depth sacrificed almost every statistical category to us, all except big chance creation, and managed to ground out a draw? Does that sound familiar? Because that's what we saw last season a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying about less talent, but you've also got to factor in that West Brom game. Jorginho Rutter left the club suddenly. It was like sort of 48 hours before the game. Solomon
wasn't playing. Ramazani wasn't available either.
Exactly, Ramazani. Listen, I'll admit we were definitely over-reliant on Rutter last season for chance creation. I don't think anyone could deny that. When Rutter's form dropped, our form dropped. It's simple as that. When it took Rutter time to get going last season, it took us time to get going last season, and it directly, was in sync with each other. Our form and Rutter's form. The irony is Rutter's, best game in that not second half of the season, but the last quarter of the season was the Norwich 4-0 playoff game, and that was Rutter's best performance in ages, and that was our best performance in ages. So it definitely did. It was 2 in sync. We needed more as a team all round. But I do think this Leeds team, I think obviously it's difficult to judge right now how good this Leeds team is, because obviously you've got Tanaka's put in there. And what I will say, so fundamentally, I think this Leeds team is a little bit different. I'm not saying it's totally different. I'm not saying we've decided all of a sudden that we're going to be this team that's going to play heavy metal, Bielsa style football, and go for the throat every single time we get a chance to get a shot on goal or a cross into the box. That's just not the way we're going to play. But I do think this Leeds team looks more like Farke's Norwich team now. I do believe that. Maybe that's because we've got less individual brilliance in terms of Rutter and Somerville. We're still yet to see if these players that have come in can replicate that. They possibly can. But what I'd say is I think this Leeds team now, with 2 natural fullbacks, a natural number 9, it feels like we do still like to keep the ball, but we're trying to force teams. We're trying to bait teams to kind of push out against us and then try and expose them in behind, kind of thing. And I think to do that, you need Dan James and or Ramazani on the pitch. And with Dan James unavailable, you lose that pace, a little bit in behind. It's all well and good, in terms of keeping the ball. The opposition back line pushes back, but when you haven't got that raw pace in behind to hurt them, it is going to hurt us a little bit. And when you haven't got that player in midfield to play those passes over the top, i.e. a Tanaka, because I don't think that's Grove's game. I don't necessarily think that's the best part of Ampadu's game. I think that's where Tanaka comes in. And, that's 3 really crucial profiles to come into this Leeds team yet, in terms of Tanaka.
I think Gabe has got a point, though. I think backs against the wall against a good team in this division. And I'm not saying... we've still got to prove that. No question. I think that's what he's suggesting, really. I think it's, and obviously I get the data points, and it's a good evidence. Like I said, there's a couple of variables there, Oscar. But I will say this: I think, Joe asked me, he was like, "Are you convinced it's going to be sort of top 2?" And on a stream, I'm saying, look, I think squad wise, we've got top 2 credentials, all this sort of stuff. But I think what I need to see from Farke really is. I'd like to see a little bit of a development on certain things that I've seen this season, last season, I should say, for an extended period of time. So I sort of get that to an extent, to be honest. I'd love to see us backs up against the wall against some sides and be able to grind that out. And we want this new squad, because the build-up's completely different. The squad,
Connor, even one more high quality chance on goal per match would make me feel much more confident that this is an HMS Pistol League side versus because. Honestly, I genuinely believe this. I believed it last season, and I believe it this season. That a team this talented, that dominates the ball this much, and concedes so few chances on its own goal, should be creating more chances. They should. And right now, I mean, again, it's the data sample is very limited. But right now, I mean, we're just not doing that. We're not creating a ton of them. It's still. I mean, I'm basically saying that. I'm rating this as a B+ start to the season. I want to be clear about what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. I'm not saying we're in crisis. We're in a very, very good position. But if we look at some of the underlying data and just watch the matches, some of the same trends from last season are still prevalent in the team. In fact, you can make the argument that they're a little bit worse, that we're actually averaging fewer bigger chances. And what we mean by big chances are chances with a high probability of scoring.
But wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't it be better now to judge? Like I put the question to you. You can see it in the title. And look, you're having to answer this now. I'm asking you to have a comprehensive season review with 4 games in. But isn't it an intelligent stance to look at this and think Tanaka, Ramazani, Solomon have all come in for a particular game? Look, Tanaka's barely got any minutes. Ramazani hasn't either. But Solomon, who got man of the match, which has to be said, it's a big thing. You've got Firpo, who's had probably his best game in a Leeds United shirt, has a contributor to that, been Solomon potentially. It felt the dynamic at the weekend, even though there was still some. It wasn't a perfect performance. The dynamic did change with a few new signings. And is there something there, Gabe, where you think to yourself, maybe the morale was boosted a little bit by new faces around the camp as well?
Yeah, I don't mean to get us off the track here, because that's the story. The story is that we've won 2 in a row, that we're unbeaten in the league, and that these new faces seem to be very, very good or in a very, very strong position. I'm just saying, I'm trying to plant the seed now, that if we are managing or having a hard time managing results against some of the better teams or the more disciplined teams, I know you have to be more talented, the more disciplined teams in the league, we can point back to this specific thing as to why. because it cost us against teams like Rotherham last season and QPR last season. All they had to do was do a certain thing and limit our chances, because they knew ultimately Leeds don't dynamically make a ton of chances per match.
But
anyway.
Gabe, isn't that the same? But a lot of what you're talking about is managerial fundamentals. When you look at Scott Parker, when you look at Chris Wilder, when you look at Carlos Corberán, look, we can talk about Carlos Corberán probably being a better manager than the lot of them. I would suggest that. But you're talking about fundamentals. Managers from top to bottom don't really veer away from the fundamentals. So I guess you're looking there at maybe already a bit of a managerial issue of which you're not really convinced by at the start of the season as well. It's not really convinced you.
It's really more to say that, like, I think that ultimately teams are who they are over long periods of time. We don't know who this team is because we've only had 4 matches with them in the league. And as Oscar quite rightly pointed out, most of the new signings weren't a part of that. I'm just saying that when you're this good and you're expecting to go up automatically, if you have this profile of maybe underperforming against certain types of teams, and when I say you, I do mean the manager, right? Because it is a thing. When we get into trouble, you kind of know how to blueprint Farka a little bit, right? So we should be creating more big chances in games that we dominate this much on the ball. Is all I'm saying. Do
you expect us to going forward a little bit more? Or
I don't really know. So I can't pretend to know who Solomon's going to be this season. I really liked what I saw from him, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. We talked about that on the Patreon. And I think Ramazani looks incredibly rapid. Joseph's really impressed me so far, not only with his, just statistical output so far. Again, only 4 games in the league, but also what he's been doing off the ball too. So I'm very optimistic. Don't mistake me. I'm very optimistic. I'm just saying, if we have to look at something that for me looks exactly the same as last season, if not just a little bit worse, it's the number of big chances we get on goal. That hasn't changed.
But fundamentally, you've got to also say as well, obviously, listen, I know we've made new signings. I think we've got the strongest squad in the league, to be honest now. I would genuinely say that. I think it's also Burnley. I think it's obviously, some would say Burnley, but for me, I'd probably go with us, to be honest. But when you lose Somerville, Rutter, Archie Gray even, players like that, who contributed a lot to our attacking momentum last season in terms of getting the ball from back to front pretty quickly. When you lose those players, and yes, I know we've replaced them now with other players, but we haven't seen those replacements yet. So the fact is, we're still, effective. I wouldn't call it like a B team that we put out against Hull, but it was definitely not our strongest team. And, in terms of what we saw in a short cameo from Tanaka and Ramazani, I personally thought, towards the end of the game, we got better and better. Of course, the game became a bit more stretched because Hull had to push forward, but I think fundamentally we were pretty dominant towards the end of the game, and
we were completely dominant. I think Oscar, we're almost losing the forest of the trees on the point. But I guess ultimately, do you think we should have created more chances last season than we did every game, or not?
I don't really remember it being that big an issue. I think fundamentally what was the bigger issue for us last season was losing control of games. I don't think creativity was that big a problem for us. Of course, there's always going to be the odd game over a season. Obviously, we know that Rotherham United game away from home, it's just the nature of the Championship. You're going to get games where it doesn't matter how good you are, there's going to be frustrations along the way. But I think fundamentally we lost control of games too easily. I'm looking at like the Coventry game towards the end of the season, where I think our really, really bad run started from. We go 1-0 down, and then straight away, rather than keep our heads, we go 2-0 down, and then all of a sudden the game is completely gone.
Got it. So you don't think it came down to ultimately we should have created more chances? I think we should have, compared to the other teams that went up. And additionally, I don't think, this is my assumption, I don't assume that we're going to improve on that metric after losing Somerville and after losing Jorginho. We might, and that would be great. And ultimately, I do think we can get away with it this season because I think the league is weaker. But if we're just kind of my last punctuation on this, just to look at, you got to be happy with how the season's begun. One thing I just want to encourage everyone to look at is a relatively low number of high quality chances we get with this team and have gotten with Farka in Leeds. With, I would say right now, you can say I may be proven wrong on this, and that would be great. But better high-end attacking talent. So we'll see what happens. But if we do struggle against the big teams, I want us to look at that statistic and see.
Gabe, if you look at it, okay, say, I don't know, Arsenal, for example, okay, if they had Saka, Martinelli and Declan Rice missing from the team, say if that's the equivalent of Rutter, Somerville and Gray missing out the team, would Arsenal drop off or not drop off? No matter how good a team
not
they
even
are
what I'm
defensively.
talking about, though. I'm saying if you look back last season, we generate an XG of 1.7 per match.
But how
There
do
are
that compare to
teams-
the rest of the league, just out of interest? So
the other teams that went up improved on that metric. So we had this complaint. I feel like I'm getting us caught up on a stupid hypothetical that doesn't even make sense.
I'm pretty sure we'll have had the lowest XG against as well.
Yeah. But this isn't an argument about whether we were good or not, or whether we should have gone up or not, Oscar. It's simply to say, is there any trend that you see? Basically, I'm pointing out, is there any trend that I could see in continuance of last season that I would have liked to see us be better last season on? And the answer is generating high quality chances on goal. Right now, there were very few matches last season where we ran away with matches that we thoroughly dominated. I would like to see us do that, because that would give me a degree of confidence that we're going to completely dominate the league that I don't currently have right now. I have on paper
teams, though. Yeah, the thing is as well, we've not played bad teams. I mean, Hull City, we've got people like Liam Miller.
Where do you think Chef Wednesday is going to finish?
I thought they'd finish.
Sheffield Wednesday away from home is never going to be an easy game. Listen, I don't know what I asked. I don't know, about 15 for 16, something like that. I don't think they'll go down. But yeah, I think
so. Maybe not great teams so far, and limited data.
I'm not saying the great teams, but I don't think we've played teams that are especially bad. Portsmouth, I think, have been pretty decent so far this season in terms of the start, and I think that's a game, that Portsmouth game. You said it yourself. The 3-3 was not a fair reflection of the game. I think that one, we missed some unbelievable chances in that game.
I think the context is I would be more worried if managers in this division were maybe a little bit more maybe well-rounded. I'd be a little bit more worried if they had higher ceilings, of which I probably think there's maybe one in this division when it comes to that top six, maybe Corberan. I don't really rate Scott Parker. Chris Wilder, I don't massively rate. I do rate Danny Roll at Sheffield Wednesday. Will he be there for the full season? I don't think so. Corfentes at QPR, I rate, but you've got to look at the manager balance with the squad as well. Watford, are they going to stick there for the remainder of the season? I doubt it. Sunderland are maybe a bit of an outlier because of their underlying numbers again, which have all been through the roof in terms of pressing, goals conceded. They've conceded 1 goal in 4 games. And they played.
It feels like another Ipswich a little bit, doesn't it? Where early season we're like, well, they can't be this good, and then they rolled out.
But they are looking good. Yeah. They're looking very, very good. Sunderland. A lot of people are saying they're going to fall off, and they might do. But we'll have to wait and see with that one. But I think a lot of the time, invariably anyway, the coach marries with the squad. If you get the coach outweighing the squad, you get an Ipswich scenario. But that's very much an outlier. And I just wonder in this, Gabe, I'd be. Leicester and Southampton last season, I was very worried from the start, to be honest with you, because I thought, wow, this is going to be tough. You looked at their squads towards the end of the window and you thought, they've got good teams still. I mean, Leicester's was ridiculous, let's be honest with each other. And I just maybe look at, and we're talking about XG this, XG that, but I think we've got to look at the makeup of the other sides, their start to the season as well, and maybe tendencies that have followed them into this season as well. And that's probably the comparisons that, we need to talk about as well, because we're in a division which is fundamentally weaker. You can already see that with the likes of Sunderland propping up the division and 4 wins out of 4. Watford been in the mix. West Brom looking really good up there. No team that's come down has really struck any fear into me. And maybe that's the big outlier right now.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'll get us off this point because I feel like really all I'm saying is if we don't, it's literally an if-then statement. If we have some disappointing results, I want us to look at this metric as an important underlying data point that I think is indicative of what could be a problem. But right now, again, I'm pretty satisfied, pretty happy with how we're playing. I just think we should generate more chances. That's all.
I think we will once we get Ramazani into the team, Tanaka into the team, because the thing is for us, we have an issue at the moment getting the ball from linking the midfield to the attack without Tanaka on the pitch. I personally think. I think the reason we signed Tanaka is that to get the ball into that final third quicker, to get Ramazani 1-on-1 against his fullback, Solomon 1-on-1 against his fullback, Joseph in behind. I think you need players to feed those passes.
Are you taking Gruev out for Burnley then?
I think I would, to be honest. I think I would. I know it won't be a popular opinion to have, but
do you think Farke would? That's the question.
No, I don't think he would. To be honest, I think
Tanaka's going to struggle to get in. I think Tanaka's going to struggle to get in. I don't
think he'll struggle to get in. I think he'll get in within 2 or 3 games, I reckon.
But I think we think that. I think fundamentally in a double pivot, I wonder how much security Farke thinks that he needs to give the back four. And I think if he's told Gruev to get a little bit further forward, which you can see already this season, he has a little bit, Gruev still provides you with that security to a potential counter-attack coming the opposite way that maybe Tanaka wouldn't do, because Tanaka would be part of our offensive unit. I wonder if Daniel Farke is so secure when it comes to Gruev that he thinks to himself, look, if he can just get that attacking side of his game a little bit better, then we've well-rounded him and he gives us a little bit more protection than Tanaka will.
Yeah, I mean, but I think Tanaka is tenacious. I mean, he's a lot more tenacious than a Gruev, for example, and I think he's more defensively aware than Rothwell, personally. I think Ampadu Tanaka is, to be honest with you, a pretty phenomenal, for this level, compared to other midfields, I think is certainly from what I've seen of Tanaka, what I've seen, obviously, over the last 12 months of Ampadu, I think that's a midfield base.
Well, let's just get into this comment here, because it's kind of reeling off what we're talking about here, mate. So Dom said, shout out to you, Dom, as well, mate. Thank you for your support. Do you guys think that we'll regret not signing a specialist number 10 and maybe possibly not getting a backup striker in case Joseph gets injured? I think it's a smart comment, Dom.
Absolutely.
I'll put my feelings out there, Dom, as well. I think naturally the come down, let's say if Joseph was out for a period of time and then you had to go to Peru, I like Joel, I think we all do, but it's a very different profile when you come into even Leeds' build-up then, really, and how we're able to, move defences around and the running Joseph does and how he occupies the centre-backs. It's very, very different, because in my opinion, when you look at Peru being on the pitch, I think a lot of other players have got to do that for him. I think you saw that at Swansea. I think you've seen that at Leeds. I think the explosiveness when it comes to Leeds would have to just be purely out wide then. Perot just wouldn't provide that like Joseph provides that. I think the press would lessen. So, yeah, for me, mate, I think a younger profile to bring in January would be really advantageous. And also, you're talking about a specialist number 10. Lads, I think a specialist number 10 is going to very, very, very much be dependent on what happens, Gabe, regarding Aronson and Nonto, because I think the interchanging that we've spoken about regarding those two, I think if that's going to be, beneficial for Leeds up until January, and you're going to get them producing good numbers and getting goals and, being a bit of a heartbeat there and creatively being good as well, I don't think Leeds will look at a 10. Do I think they need to look at the 10 with the amount of coffers they've got in the bank? I think so, potentially.
Yeah, it's really more the investment over the reward of investing in a number 10 at this level. And can you play Nonto in that number 10 role? And how much money do you want to spend on a backup striker when you're going to need every bit of that money if you go into the Premier League next season? Which, let's face it, looking at the table, looking at the teams in this division, there's no reason this team shouldn't go up. So I agree with the comment. I do think that, you want cover. Right now we don't have, like, if Nonto were to go down, who is going to step into that 10? You would think it would be Aronson. I wouldn't be very, very satisfied with that. Or it would be Piru, maybe. I wouldn't be very satisfied with that. So, you would like to see what I think I would love to see is just maybe another almost a false 9 who plays a 10 come in. I think that'd be nice. But I also don't want to that point. I fully agree. I think that coverage for Mateo Joseph is important, because I'm not even talking about, like, if you could guarantee Pat Bamford would be fit every week, he's not bad in a pinch to get in there for a couple games, but we can't guarantee that. He's already hurt. So, you need to have some cover. Yeah.
I think fundamentally this is a difficult league to build depth in, because players don't want to be backup strikers in the Championship. Maybe in the Premier League, because it's the joy of being a Premier League footballer. But in the Championship, I just think it's a little bit different. I don't think it's just us who lacks depth in certain areas. Look at Sheffield United, for example. I think they've done really good business, to be honest. But they lack depth on the wings. They lack depth in the forward area. To me,
I'm going to add to your point there. By the way, they've done good business for the Championship.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
None of that for me is long-term thinking when it comes to Sheffield United. I don't think any of that's transitional to the Premier League. But anyway, I get that.
Yeah,
I think fundamentally when you're talking about squad building, Oscar, there's got to be a view to long term as well.
Yeah, of course. And it's just a very difficult league. I mean, Matteo Joseph so far, if Matteo Joseph was a new signing in the summer, we'd all be talking about what a great impact he's had and what a great signing he's been. And that's the reality of it. So trying to persuade someone to sign and sit on the bench for someone who's 20 years old is not going to be an easy thing to do. So that has to be, something you factor into it as well. But fundamentally, if we can't get promotion with this squad, then I think we've got to be asking questions, of players individually, Daniel Farker, and just
if we don't get promoted with the squad, Farker will be gone. Yeah,
I hope he's if we're nowhere near by.
And I think we will get top 2. By the way,
I agreed.
No, I agree. But if he's not there by a certain point, he should be sacked.
Right, 100%.
Yeah, I think the pressure will be different this season. I think the whole. We have to go up this season. It has to be our mentality. It feels like our mentality this season is, we've got to go up. People like Manor Solomon, yes, I know it's only on loan, but, you're thinking that's Premier League wages coming into the Championship, and Premier League top 6 wages as well coming into the Championship. It's not just a signing from Fulham on loan. It was a signing from Tottenham on loan we're talking about here. So, yeah, the expectation has to be to get promoted. People like Ramazani plays minutes up front for Almira in the past, and did a relatively decent job. So there is options within the squad, if we did get injuries. And it's the same for any team. If you get an injury, if Haaland got injured for Man City tomorrow, what would Man City do?
That is true. That is true.
It is the reality across. I'm not defending it, by the way. I think we did probably need to get a 10 or a number 9 in, but
no, but
I don't think
as the comment just said there, there's a comment just said there from Mike at the donation. It said that we've had players score from all 4 front positions already, and that's that's key as well. And I think we're going to spread that around with the likes of Ramazani as well. Tanaki, you'd hope he's going to get a few goals, and I think that's the thing as well. If you lose that number 9, it's not great, but as long as you've got players in and around that number 9 who can contribute to goals, as we saw last season, fellas, when we didn't have a consistent number 9 whatsoever in terms of goal feedback. Really, when you look at Peru and Bamford and Joseph sparingly. You've got to hope that your other attacking players contribute to that, and I think this team is good enough to have that. I mean, you're looking at Solomon at the weekend. Ramazani, when he came on, he looked like he was playing a different game to the rest of everyone on the pitch in terms of how quick he was and how hungry he looked. I think sort of the new signings, lads, there's only sort of one which there's maybe a few question marks over, and maybe that's well, there's 2 maybe, Joe Rodon and Jayden Bogle potentially.
To be honest with you, I think Bogle, he had a poor debut. There's no question about that. Certainly defensively, he had a poor debut. I actually thought he did a lot of good things in an attacking sense.
Is the questions from the fan base over Bogle? I think there is.
To be honest, I think Bogle last 2 or 3 weeks has been solid. Listen, it's not an easy task trying to stop people like Liam Miller. Liam Miller for me, is a really, really good Championship winger. I think he's one of the better left wingers in the league, probably top 3 or 4. You could definitely argue that. And his strength is 1v1 dribbling. And I think, to be honest, yes, Bogle had some not so good moments against Miller, but I think over the 90 minutes, I thought he did a pretty decent job. I thought Sheffield Wednesday, he did a good job in that game. Yes, Joe Rodon, I don't think he's played badly by any stretch of the imagination, but has he been as colossal as what he was last season so far? Probably not, but I don't think by any means it's enough to maybe be concerned about Joe Rodon, to be honest. We've kept 3 clean sheets in 3 games. I think Joe Rodon, there's enough credit in the bank there for me.
I think what you're seeing is the best centre back in the division, just alongside of him, and just looking miles better than him at this moment in time. And I think that's just the way of being next to Pascal Struijk at the back. Unfortunately, I don't think Joe Rodon's been abhorrently bad. I don't think he's been great, but next to Pascal, who's been inch perfect, it's probably been a bit of a comparative from fans.
But they complement each other. That's the thing.
They do.
Pascal's not the most aggressive centre back in the world, and Joe Rodon's not the best centre back on the ball in the world. So they complement each other quite well in that kind of sense. And you've seen it in the underlying numbers defensively. We've been ridiculously good defensively so far this season. We've given up very few chances on goal. Ilan Mellier's had very little to do so far this season, and
thank God. Sorry.
Nah, can we say? I mean, look, I think we're being a little bit hyperbolic here. The first game of the season was a disaster for us, and then we
But,
got dumped out in the league.
Okay, let's just go
against
to the first
Middlesbrough.
game of the season.
There were a lot of,
Can I just go to the first game of the season 1 second? Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Bogle is a terrible moment from Bogle on the 3-3 goal, but it's never a penalty. It's outside the box. That's something that's turned from a dangerous free kick into a penalty kick late on in the game. I mean, Callum Lang smashed one in from 35 yards out, and the other goal is a mistake from Ilan Meslier. It's one where a shot coming in from that angle. For me, it's not even a big chance. It's
not a regular. It's not a regular game.
It's become a big chance because Ilan Melier's let a goal in on his near post.
We've had 3 really good games in a row defensively after 2 really bad ones. I think it's just.
But the Borough game,
really hard for us to say that.
Borough game, we had a makeshift back line, as well.
I know, but we. All right, then I guess every declarative statement we should have an asterisk to say, all right, if there's a counterpoint to this, just know that this wasn't our real team. I mean, come on. Like,
what can we really do defensively? I mean, you know what I mean? With 3 clean sheets on the bounce and the goals we have let in.
Then I'm fine with hey, the last 3 weeks we've looked really great defensively. I'm not fine with pretending the first 2 games of the season didn't exist. We were bad defensively. We were terrible. That Middlesbrough match was shocking.
Okay. Callum Lang has smashed a shot in from 35 yards out, whatever it was. It's not good.
Were we good in the Middlesbrough game defensively?
No, but I've just said we had a makeshift back line in that game. Max Berber had a horror show in that game.
Max Berber should be the best backup center half in this league.
Well,
right? So I just,
for me personally, he hasn't shown it in that game at all. I think and obviously the Euros is another thing as well. But I thought he looked really dodgy in the Euros too. But that's another matter altogether.
We'll just have to feel free to discard any sample of our season that doesn't line up with the prevalent thinking. I don't know. I just think that sometimes we get hyperbolic about this kind of thing.
Defensively against Portsmouth, as I said, there's a non-existent penalty. Okay, on the third goal, Lang smashed one in from 30 yards, and then the first goal. Okay, if we call that a big chance, that's one big chance in a game. I don't know. I can't really see that, to be honest. I think
so. If you were the manager after the game, we come out 3-3, you're going to say to the press, I thought we were good defensively.
No, I wouldn't be the first.
All right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not mishearing.
But I just think it's I don't know, Gabe. I mean, you talk about into the fact that we scored 2 goals from 1.1 xG in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
But that's I don't think you can have it both ways, kind of thing. Of course, we could have been better in an attacking sense, but the XG also says that we've been really good in a defensive sense. Even if we conceded 3 against Portsmouth, I think it just works both ways. Yes, I agree. I would like us to be a bit more front foot, a bit more high tempo, a bit more in your face, heavy metal, Bielsa kind of style. I would like that. Don't get me wrong. If you gave me a choice between winning 3-2 every week and winning 1-0 every week, I'm taking 3-2. It's just the way I like to watch football. But
were you an attacker when you played?
Was it, sorry?
Were you an attacker when you played? I'd always prefer the 1-0. I'm boring like that.
Nah, I'm 3-2, Bielsa style vibes. That's what I want. It's what Leeds. I think that's what. That's what we want ultimately. I think the best spells of last season were when we were scoring goals. We were, having a lot of chances in games. That January to March spell, I thought was a brilliant spell under Daniel Farke until that international break. So,
I'm just poking against the hyperbole, Oscar. I'm not saying I disagree with you over the last 3 games. Last 3 games, we've been excellent defensively. It's more of that, like if you've only got 5.
Forwards, which is
I'm not, okay. But I'm not.
Then you've also got to say that
I didn't criticize us going forward, though. I all I said was that, and it was not even critical. We were good enough going forward last season to get 90 points. It's not a criticism to say I think we could do a little bit better in terms of big chances created. I'm quite happy with possessing 60-40 by a 20% margin on possession stats every single week. That's great. I'm quite happy winning 2-0 every single week against some of these teams that I think we should probably beat 3-0. But a win's a win. That's why it's sort of like I'm happy, but I can't look back at the defensive performance in the first 2 matches and say that I felt enthusiastic. I feel relieved now that we have 3 clean sheets in a row. That's awesome.
Gabe, are you talking, I know you mentioned in hyperbole though, but is what you're saying realistic? Are we supposed to have the best defensive record in the division and create X amount of chances per match to
But you don't necessarily have to do that. I think so. A lot of this gets exemplified in how people are talking about Bogle, right? People have been like, Bogle's been shocking. He's not been shocking.
No,
he was one of the highest rated players against Chef Wednesday. That it's been spotty, but nowadays fullbacks, if this isn't 2004, where Gary Neville's out there, just stopping folks and just overlapping ones to hit a cross in, and his job was to defend. The game has changed. There aren't a whole lot of fullbacks in this division or in the division up, by the way, that are really that impressive defensively. They're a rare breed. But what I will say is, for a new player that's coming to the side, and this is the same with Junior Firpo, their performances have been pretty solid. And even Liam Miller, I think, Oscar, you pointed this out too. Yeah, he ran past him a couple times, but he still kept him to semi-dangerous areas, with the exception of one where he cut in on the inside and hacked it over goal. So I just think that sometimes we turn in, as a fan base, we turn into hyperbole factors where everything's the best we've ever seen and we're going to piss the league or everything's terrible. Well, you've not said it, but
I think when you keep 3 clean sheets on the bounce and there's other factors, of course, listen, the Borough game was a shocking game. I make no mistake about it, but that Borough game was also 3 weeks ago. A lot can change in 3 weeks. A lot can change and a lot has changed for me.
I just can't look at a data sample of 5 matches and say that I think we've been great defensively. I just can't do it. I can't. I have to say, all right, last 3 weeks we've been really good.
Do you think? Well, what do you think? What do you think in comparison to? Are you seeing sort of any changes at the back? Then do you think we look a little bit meatier with Pascal back there and Bogle's come in? Seems to be a little bit of a constant as well. It doesn't seem like we've taken that much of a step down from Bogle to Archie in the right back capacity, right? And Firpo, we have to say, has continued the form from the end of last season, which I think surpassed his form at the beginning of last season, if that makes sense. I don't even think he was available at the beginning of last season. I might be wrong on that, but the back line probably does look a little bit more solid than what it did. I guess that's a data comparative.
Well, to your point, though, on Joe Rodon, I do agree that he at times has looked not as good as last season, but again, it's a young season. He still looked good. It just, by comparison,
he's not dropped below. Apart from that, he's not dropped below 7 out of 10. I thought he was outstanding.
I agree, Oscar. I'd still say that's the best center half pairing in the league, and it's not all because of Pascal. I mean, he does a lot that you like. I mean, ultimately, I think it's maybe just been not as great. We don't. I don't want to punish the players for not wowing us to the same degree as they did last season already after 5 matches. It's that kind of thing.
But I get what you're saying. Listen, but I think in terms of chance creation, I don't think it's fair to criticize us on that when we've not got our best players on the pitch. In terms of Tanaka.
Oscar, all right, am I criticizing Tanaka? Am I criticizing Ramazani? Or am I saying the players haven't been good enough? Is that what's coming out of my mouth? No, I'm saying if I'm looking at all the data, all of it, and I said, what would make me feel indelibly confident about us in all aspects of the game? I would say I would like to see our chance creation a little bit better than it is.
It will be better when Tanaka and Ramazani are on the pitch.
You have no idea that that's the case. How many matches have you seen Ramazani play?
Ramazani is too good for this level for me. I genuinely believe that.
I would love to say that's true.
What I've seen when he came on the pitch against Hull, you can just tell when the player is top class. For me personally, if I'm wrong, I'll hold my hands up and say I'm wrong. But for me, Ramazani...
But there's a difference between saying, Oscar, that I'm going to make an educated guess, or this is what I hope, or this is what I believe, in saying that this is absolutely... We just don't know, man. We don't know, and I can't say it's been good.
Tanaka and Ramazani on the pitch.
Farkas teams, by and large, do not tend to create a ton of chances.
Into Miami, will they create more chances with Messi on the pitch or not on the pitch?
I see. So Ramazani's are Messi.
No, but I'm all right. Take a player like that. Take Bukayo Saka at Arsenal. Will Arsenal create? I'm not going
to see. This is where it gets ridiculous for me. I'm not going to compare a kid who I've not watched play of Heart from once or twice to any one of those guys, because that's what I'm saying. It gets so spaceshipy for me that we're now comparing to have Ramazani in the team is the equivalent of for Inter Miami to have Messi or Bukayo Saka to have.
The example I'm using here is, if you just listen to the example I'm using, I'm saying,
right.
I get what
you think it's going to be that much of a step up. That's what you're saying, right? That we're going to create
chance creation. Okay, I think we should create more chances. I think in the games against Hull and Sheffield Wednesday, Could it have been more than 2-0? Probably not. We were clinical. Great. We were clinical, but we can't rely on that every single week. Of course we can't. But I'm not going to use that as a criticism just yet until we've got the new signings on the pitch. I don't think you can judge us as a team. Any team, it doesn't matter how good a manager is,
judging on
they need their best players on the pitch. And we've signed Tanaka and Ramazani for a reason, because we think they're better than what we've got. And from what I've seen of both players, I definitely agree with that.
All right. Well, okay.
It's I think it's harsh. I think it's harsh to say that. At this stage.
It's harsh to say I would like us to be better at chance creation.
Well, I think we will be better when you've got our best players on the pitch. That's the point I'm saying.
But that's not even a counterpoint to me. It's basically saying, yeah, Gabe, I agree. I bet you it gets better. What are we arguing about?
But I don't know. I just think it's like you can't. For me, you can't judge a team.
I'm not judging a team. I'm simply saying I think this could get better. You're telling me, well, we haven't played our best players yet, and I think it will get better. Awesome. Great. I hope you're right.
I think we're going into we don't know what we're talking about now. And I think Mark said I'm confused now. Even my last round, what are they on about?
Right. To summarise, okay, I think we'll be a better team when Tanaka and Ramazani.
I can't get out of this debate. I can't get out of it.
Oh, it's the first time I've seen Oscar triggered in about 5 years, I think.
I'm just saying what is the point of signing Tanaka and Ramazani if they're not going to make us better on the pitch?
Okay, but Oscar, if they're going to make us better, would you say that we need to improve in the areas that they could address?
But we will improve because they're better.
Yeah. So maybe right now, without them, we're not as good as we could be, right?
Of course, we can improve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we agree. No, we don't even disagree.
But I don't think it'll become an issue at all once we've got those players on the pitch.
Get us out of this. Get us out of this, Connor. I can't do it anymore.
Ryan says, Oscar, that hat isn't helping this argument.
Yeah, but we won once, so who cares, Ryan?
Oh,
dearie me. I was going to do into a new signings ranked, to be honest, but I feel like we've just gone on to something else. Connor,
Oscar's not enough. Guys, this is all love in here. He's calling Oscar a knob. Get out of here.
Someone missed this. I was just laughing at this. Connor looks like Dolph Lundgren. Brilliant.
You put it up twice.
I had to get it up. Look, I didn't think you noticed.
No, I did.
We are still talking about football, believe it or not. I think we've.
So after all that, we basically agree. That's what we're kind of established.
Yeah, well, I think to be honest, we should leave it there. That has been an hour and 3 minutes of Gabe and Oscar just going at each other, which has been very, very good.
Exaggeration. Maybe 5 minutes of it.
5 minutes. You need to go back and watch this stream. I've just been listening to you both.
The thing is, Connor, we're not going at each other. We're trying to improve each other. Now let's debate about whether we went on for 5 minutes or not.
Oh, dearie me. John said for FFS, you've been agreeing for the last 30 minutes. Brilliant. Right, okay, guys. We're going to leave it there. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It's been a pleasure this week. It's been very different and quite funny.
Callum, of course, called it right, though. Ramazani is our Messi, so there we go.
Good one, Callum. We'll wait. As Gabe would say, we'll wait and see. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in a bit. Cheers.